All right, welcome back. I'm Chris Francis.
I'm George Urvari.
George, glad you're here, all the way down from Canada.
Yeah.
So, man, we're sitting here in Mobile, Alabama. Been listening to George and a few other people all day long at this Gulf State Horticultural Expo. Really good stuff. So, want you to share with our audience some of the stuff that we talked about today. I think the focus is going to be on human resources.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to be down here in Mobile. I think this Mobile. Yeah, Mobile. It's I didn't realize there was palm trees down here, so I was pretty excited.
A few of those that are native.
Yeah, and I heard there was snow last year, which is kind of weird.
A lot. Yeah.
So today's topic, one of the many topics, was human resources, and it's the biggest challenge for most people, and for leaders, it's probably the hardest thing to sort of overcome in terms of getting it right. And part of getting it right is dealing with the hard part, which is letting people go. And so I'll start with the worst part first, letting people go. It's if you don't do it, it holds you back. Your employees that are existing will be extremely frustrated. And
It holds them back too, right? Because if somebody's not going to make it, like they need to figure that out early on and not wait and be dragged along.
the sooner you do it, the less painful it is and the less expensive. And it shows leadership to make those changes. Now, sometimes it's your fault. You have to let them go. In other words, you made a bad hire. You put somebody in a position to fail.
Or didn't give them the right instructions or so whatever. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And then other times the employee is the wrong fit or they just plain have a bad attitude.
Yeah.
So what we do is I always look at employees as assets or liabilities. There's no in between, just like a balance sheet. And I rank order the assets, and I essentially give them an A plus, a B plus, and I also look at whether or not they're loyal.
So, all right. So before we dive too far into that, tell viewers, listeners, what you do, because you didn't just sit behind a desk and come up with this, right? This wasn't some government program. No. So what do you do? Where did you get your start? Where did this come from?
Yeah, so I started this, it's called Oriole Landscaping in Toronto 40 years ago with a business partner, Peter, about 2 months in. We did it to pay for university, and we just kept growing the business. It grew. There was no plan. It was not something that I'd planned on doing for life to run a landscaping business. And I guess I figured out how to be successful at it.
And you worked yourself out of a job, right?
It was the whole plan since day one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We had a thing called Freedom 55. And so ironically, at 55, I got out of the business and started another business. So
Okay.
I guess I'm not.
So that company still exists. You still own it. Still runs itself.
Yes.
How big is that?
We have about 50 employees. We have 2 locations. We're roughly about 10 million in revenue.
Okay. 10 million per year in the landscape.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. And so we do high-end design build.
Okay.
We do high-end horticulture, call it maintenance with a bougie name so we can charge more. And we deal with really rich people.
And this is all, a third of the year that you can?
Well, so we work about 38 to 40 weeks of the year.
Okay, so that's a pretty good bit of
Yeah, and then we also do construction in the winter, so that's another nice system we have. So, for example, we'll buy a house and then renovate it, flip it.
And you can do that when it's freezing cold and snow and ice and everything else. Yeah, okay. All right, so landscape, construction, and now you've got the consulting business.
Yeah, so I'd actually been consulting for probably 20 years. Okay, I would ask me for help, and so in the wintertime when we weren't that busy, that's what I would do. And so I decided to formalize it about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And I put all my efforts into that, developing that business. So a lot of it is creating processes for companies on the consulting side. So tools so they can see what's going right, what's going wrong, and then for them to be able to use the tools without me when I'm gone to continue that process.
So not like the chiropractor that says you got to come back every week for more and more and more adjustments. You're trying to work yourself out of a job.
100%. Yeah. So there's 30 million small businesses in North America.
Okay.
99% of them are not well run.
Yeah.
Probably more. There is an abundance of opportunity okay. So my job is to make myself at least need a consultant.
Mine included in that, by the way. So absolutely, not saying that mine's the exception.
Yeah. So actually, there's a distinction that I have in terms of looking at companies. I have what are called distressed companies. And then I distress, that is distress. And I have companies that are opportunity companies. Okay. And then there are companies that are on the verge of distress and opportunity. Okay. And so oftentimes people want to grow too fast and they blow up. And so the trick is to get them to understand that, you have to learn to walk before you can run. Sure. And make sure the back end is ready for what's coming so that you do it in a thoughtful, planned out way. Right?
So if the focus is just on growth, just getting to a particular number or something like that, that's probably not that great of a plan. Really, just like get your plan processes figured out. Yeah, get the quality. What's the word that you would use to kind of figure out to make sure the business is doing well before you start?
Yeah. So you want to essentially make sure that you're in a position where the company's turnkey. Okay. And so all the processes, all the people, everybody are dialed in, and it's not stressed to the max, and you have capacity for growth. And, growth can be buying another business, which is one of my favorite ways to grow. So you can take a $10 million business, and I work with a company that went from 8 million to 22 million, and they bought a business that was bigger than theirs. Wow. It was a complementary business. It was a nursery business. There you go. I'm at 22 million, just like that. Wow. However, they had a great leadership team, and great processes. So the transitions were not brutal. That's when you have a weak leadership team.
So, and I don't want to dive too far off into this, but you help facilitate buying and selling businesses as well. And part of what that buyer is looking for is a well-run, well-oiled machine, right? Not chaos.
Well, we don't want to back chaos. Well, sometimes you're buying parts of the business. Okay. I don't have to buy the whole business. Okay. I buy the employees. I can buy the customers. Okay. I usually don't care about the equipment. Okay. And if they have no processes, depending on how I'm integrating into my business, that can be easy or difficult. So that changes the valuation of the business. So if it's difficult and I got to do a lot of work creating processes for them, or getting the people to adopt the processes, then it's worth less. Like there's already processes. Really, to be honest with you, it's management. Okay. Like if they have great management, I don't have to worry about it. If the owner themselves is involved in the business still and doing the day-to-day, like he values the business. I would think. That's huge.
Yeah. Because when he gets paid, he's out.
Well, I don't have somebody to replace that person. If they have a manager, right, and they're at the CEO level and that manager is running things, I don't have to do anything. That's where the huge stream.
Yeah. So when, what you don't want to do is buy a business that is completely 100% around that one owner that just got paid, and maybe he's going to stick around a little bit and help you get to that next.
Yeah, you would have transition. You got to have transition. There's no way you can I'm transition next. That does not work. Yes, because it also shows the commitment of the owner to their employees. It's part of the whole culture. Okay,
so again, I don't want to dive too far off in that, but human resources, it's going to look a lot different in a company with 1,000 employees, 150, or 3. And probably where a lot of people are is they're at that 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 level and trying to grow. You're not at the size where you can have a dedicated HR, department.
That's correct. Yeah.
So somebody's wearing hats.
Correct. So the first rule that I typically have is the operations and the HR person can be the same person until around 40 employees. Okay. And then at around 40 employees, you generally want to have an dedicated HR person.
Okay.
There's also a component of health and safety to that as well. So it depends on how important the health and safety is to your business. That impacts the HR. And the other rule of thumb that I have for companies in terms of HR is you want to keep it simple. Okay? So if you want to get some talent, which is one of the biggest obstacles, you want to essentially be advertising all year round for talent, even if you don't need it. Okay. And the reason is you won't be able to upgrade your talent if you're not looking at the right time. So the idea is I go fishing once a year in the morning, and I didn't catch any fish. So if I did that every day and it's fished morning and evenings, I would increase my chance of catching good fish. Absolutely. And so continue recruiting. I don't care how big your company is. You've got to do it regardless of whether you're needing staff. If I could use a sports metaphor, let's say I could get a Sidney Crosby hockey. Sorry, I mean, it doesn't apply that here. I'll think of a football player.
What's hockey? What is this hockey?
Hockey is it's this ice thing that where you correct, yeah?
I don't know what that is.
So let's say I had this access to this incredible talent. Even if I didn't need it, would I get it? And the answer is yes. Okay. If it's a superstar, I want it changes everything. One person changes everything. Basketball in Canada, the Raptors, they brought in Kawhi Leonard and we won a championship. One person changes the game.
Yeah.
So people don't.
And if you don't have room for that person on your team, then you got to figure out either you're going to grow to fit that, or maybe you're going to replace somebody,
Or is back to my assets and liabilities. So if I have somebody in my liabilities piece, they're gone. And I'm not worried about what I'm paying per hour. I'm worried about what I'm getting per hour.
Right. So part of it would be we kind of grow to fill that person, but the other is, like you just said, like we got somebody better coming in, we got to get rid of our weak link.
100%. So you get rid of the weak link. Let's say it costs you $10 more an hour, $20,000, but the worst person works twice as hard. There's no warranty. They take responsibility. You don't have to look over their shoulder. What's that worth? Now you can bring your business. You can't do.
They're not breaking stuff. They're not. Yeah.
Yeah. The three categories of employer are essentially dependent, autonomous, and teacher. So the teacher makes other people better. If you have somebody like that, your life is a lot easier. And they're not common. Like I asked today in the session, how many people had, great teachers, or how many teachers were great? The very few.
Yeah.
So it's not that the teachers aren't great. It's just as well, most people are great teachers. Like that's what it goes down to.
Yeah. Even teachers.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Even teachers who are teachers aren't great teachers. Yeah. At university, I can tell you there's a handful of professors that I remember, and the rest are, academics worried about research, not.
Sure. Well, they were theirs. Yeah. Because they had to.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And I can think of some professors that I had that were just, pretty awful. I had to teach myself. They were just their name. That's right. On the court.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Okay. So what are, do we want to kind of start at a particular point, or we can just, ramble on? I mean,
So
it's all still stuff.
I think what it comes down to is, how do I not make mistakes? Right? How do I not make mistakes in my business journey? And I'll give you, I'll step back. Okay. I have a client that hired me before he started his business. And, I think he's going to spend like 50 grand in 3 years, and he's made no mistakes, and his revenue's gone up and his profits have gone up with no mistakes.
Nice.
What's that worth? So, we did the session in the how many of you made mistakes on estimates? Well, what if you didn't make mistakes on those estimates? How much money more money would you have? And for us, it's millions. And so we had to learn the hard way ourselves, which is kind of stupid. Smart way is to hire someone to teach it. So people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to university, and you won't spend, 15 grand for some consulting. That'll change your world. So I find that remarkable.
Yeah. Or you get the problem where you teach yourself by making all those mistakes, and that education's often more expensive than going to college.
Oh yeah. So mistakes, my father used to say, stupid people learn from their own mistakes, smart people learn from others. And I think that still holds true today.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Sounds good. So you want to hire good people, right? We're not SRAs. We're not going to take knuckleheads and turn them into No. So you want to hire good people. So you want to present an image. You want to, show them. You want to show them the pay. You want to show them the benefits. You want to show them like, hey, if you work here, this is a really good place for you to work.
Well,
direct them in.
Let's flip that the other way around too. Also, we want Navy SEALs. Okay, so this is going to be a challenge, and if you like a challenge, this is the place for you. So we have a tagline in our company: we hire the best. Okay, so we expect the best and we pay the best. So they're all commensurate. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
and because life is hard when you have mediocrity, I can tell you that.
Yeah. I've been there. I'm sure you've been there. Oh, for sure. So you're not doing all this because you just dreamed of it or read it. You got sick of the way that it was and really, I'll say you fix it.
And what am I going to do about it? At the end of the day, what's in my power? And I can spend money to solve problems, right? So we hire headhunters oftentimes to get talent because I need the talent, and it's worth every penny. If it's 15 grand to pay for a talented person, and that person lasts me 10 years, that's a pretty cheap investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so what am I doing to get the talent? And so some people, they spend marketing money on getting more work.
Yeah.
I spend some of that budget on talent.
Makes sense. Makes that a lot of sense. So if you market and you find these good people and you hire them, it's going to be a lot easier. Your HR problem, you're not going to really have.
Diligent prop, you're how to HR department if you get basic people. Right. If you're bad people, you got HR plans.
Yes.
I mean, there's certain admin, you got to do the employment contracts and staff reviews. You've got to do the payroll. You've got to get them as, not much, to be honest with you. If you don't have people problems, you don't really need a big HR department.
So when you have them working, you're putting them through what, like Myers-Briggs,
Psych evaluations.
psych. So then you're also evaluating them on your own evaluations that you kind of came up with, and you're kind of looking at, is somebody getting better? Are they getting worse? Like, where are they? Who's our strong? Who's our weakest link? So you're doing all that. It's not just how much money did we take in, how much did we?
No, and then we tie that to the budget, right? So, we're going to give cost of living allowances. Are we going to give someone additional money because they moved up in responsibility? Are we giving them more money because they're a superstar and they're underpaid? One of the things we want to do is create fairness in the business. So we don't want someone underpaid and someone overpaid. We also don't care whether you've been with us for 30 years or about a year. Developers like superstars, what you could do.
Yeah.
Right. And so, the last thing you want to do is lose a superstar. And the other thing is that the people on the team, like if you want to win, and they hire somebody beside you that's getting paid as much as you, you'll win more. So you should think, oh, I've been here longer. That's the old school mentality, which is completely backwards. Okay, great.
Yeah. And if somebody's been there a long time, it means they're doing a lot.
They're doing a lot. Yeah. And you should be grateful.
That's why there's some there.
It's somebody is coming up that maybe you can mentor and make even better than me. I mean, that's the ultimate, right? When you have somebody that's better than you, then you really did a good job.
And really the SEALs, they're competitive. Somebody is doing whatever, 100 pull-ups and I'm doing 80. Man, I got to step my game up, right? So okay, I got to come up to that level.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a border collie, and this thing's stupid smart, and it's just eager to please, and it's just go, and I look at my people like, if I had all border collies, my life would be easy. Okay, and there's border collies out there, so I want to get border collies for my employees. They're smart, they're loyal, they work like hell. So I'll pay them more. I have no problem paying them more, but the last thing I want to have is a lackluster pet. Very fun.
Okay. All right. So once you go through these evaluations, and sometimes maybe somebody's having a bad day or a bad week or something, and that's probably where I struggle with the most is like, I kind of let things slide a little bit. And then when I decide to come crack down, that's the day that grandma died, or that's the day. And I'm like, now I feel like crap because, I'm like, so, but trying to figure out that balance in between, like, what do you let them get away with and, not just being like, stickler on everything.
Yeah.
Versus, giving them a little bit of grace. That's tough, but ultimately you get to decide for your company what you will put up with. And what you're going to put up with is what you're going to get. So, but you get to decide that, and it's okay if somebody's having a bad day, but that still doesn't allow you to do A, B, C, and D. We're not going to do that no matter what happens. You can just go home.
Yeah. So hopefully it doesn't get to that point.
Yeah.
I think it starts with questions. Why are you behaving like this?
Yeah.
Like, is there something going on? I'll give you a great example of a story. I had a superstar employee and the behavior started to go south, and the guy didn't want to work Saturdays, didn't want to work late anymore. And this, of course, way back in the day. And I found out that, his wife, he thought his wife had breast cancer.
Okay.
And so he literally, he loved his wife so much, he couldn't care about life anymore. Just couldn't care less.
Yeah.
And, I didn't understand where he was coming from. So sometimes we have to understand the why. Why is someone behaving a certain way? And there are things that are excusable, right? And there's things that...
But before asking that question, before asking what was going on, you probably made up a story in your head. Oh, this guy's just gotten lazy, or this guy just doesn't care, or sure, 100%, maybe he had a drinking problem or whatever. So 100%. Yeah. So rather than do that,
have a conversation of what's going on. What's going on? How I want to help you. What can I help you? Rather than immediately accusing somebody of something. Now, some people absolutely suck. Sure. And there's some people that are genuinely great people and they're having a bad time. And then they need support, not trouble. So, HR is tough because you've got the work, you've got the clients wanting to get stuff done, you got these pressures, you rely on these people and then they're not available and it puts huge pressure on you. So business is tough and HR is tougher for sure.
So you talked a little bit about the carrot and the stick today, and that's the idea of kind of luring somebody along and kind of trying to sweeten the pot, and versus beating them every time they do something wrong. So can you talk about that a little bit? Or I think you had some good analogies there.
Yeah. So, you can motivate someone with force a couple of times and then it'll backfire in there. So if you do it, recognize that you're going to burn a bridge and long term it's not going to be great for you. So how do you change someone's behavior? Well, there are people that are motivated by money and there are people that are motivated by doing the right thing. So for me, I don't care about money. I could care less about money.
For the business side, you're looking at numbers.
So if you're not the motivation, so I'm not more the byproduct of doing a great job is money. Okay. The purpose, my purpose is not to chase money. My purpose is to do a great job, and that will give me money. Okay. And so, there are people that are 80% of people are motivated by not money, intrinsic motivation.
I could see that.
Intrinsic. Like I love my peers. I love my boss.
Yeah.
I love my job. I love my customers. I'm really grateful that my boss buys me great tools and they're not crappy tools. This is a nice place to work.
And I don't know that it was always been that way. We think of the old codgers that were just like, just hammer down, no feelings, no, I think there were probably a little bit more they just suppressed, but now it's certainly a lot more feelings, a lot more emotion, a lot more, somebody's more inclined to work somewhere because they like what the company's doing. They are buying to the mission. I think it's environmentally friendly, whatever they're.
Well, it's hard. It's harder to run a company like that, to be honest with you. It's easier to be a boss than a leader. Okay. However, it's way more fun to be a leader because you watch people grow and surpass you. So, most people, maybe they've got a big ego or maybe they have insecurities and they feel threatened. For me, if someone's better than me, here's the keys. And by the way, I'll pay you more. My business is run. My business is run by our general manager. He gets paid more than I got paid when I worked. I got dividends.
And so there's not a ceiling, there's not a limit.
No.
It's like, okay. So talk about, you hit on boss versus leader.
Yeah.
So spill that out a little bit. Yeah, most people have kind of heard that, but I really put that in.
Yeah. So I had 10 points of a boss leader test. I can't remember all the questions, but some of them are like, is it me or is it we? Is it but or is it and? Is it my way or the highway, or is it questions? How could you do this better? And so that changes the tone of the company. You can get better results with less effort, and then you can empower other leaders. Like a great leader empowers other leaders. Like even a labor can be a leader. And the interesting thing about that is that there are some psychological constraints in terms of what people can and can't do. So when my kids played the sports, both of my kids were phenomenal playmakers. They could see the ice. They had vision. Some people don't have vision. And believe it or not, a great laborer already understands what's needed next without being full. And I can see the adoption curve of getting stuff done without words being said. And those people are worth way more money. So if I have a labor and this person's talented, maybe they don't want to take responsibility on, I'll still pay them really, really well because it makes my life so much easier.
So if somebody is taking initiative and they kind of figure out things on their own, which is really what we want, versus if I just tell you, go get the rake. Okay, now move that pile from here to here. And I'm constantly having to tell you everything you do. Yeah, it's exhausting for me, but also as soon as I don't tell you something, if I get on the phone to the client, hey, I'm just standing around, you're standing around doing nothing. It's much better off if kind of what's going on and
yeah. So what the way to do it is you say, well, what do you think we should do next? Lay out the steps for me, like 3 or 4 steps, and then they tell you. So okay, and after that's done, what would you do? And if they can't tell you, then you had a dependent employee. And then the trick is, can you get them to tell you that? And if not, then you have it as a dependent employer. Good. Now it's just, if you were just like, I don't know, somebody was wheel, but like all you did was mix mortar all day, let's just say. Okay. Fine. You mix mortar all day. Everything tell you what to do. However, there's multiple steps and there's pivots in what you're working. That's when it gets exhausted. And not everyone can be a great laborer. Like,
Right. That's right.
yeah, and they're worth a lot. Like I'm sure in your business, the grounds crews, you got some guys that are incredible.
Yeah. And they don't ever want to get in the bucket. They don't ever want to get in the tree. But they do great at that job. Sure. And, it'd be really hard to do it, and them being on the ground, they make things go smooth in the air. Yeah. They're running a rope or they're moving stuff around. It's so yeah, it's not all about, the guy doing the cutting.
Yeah. So back to employees, right? Like turnover is brutal. Loyalty is huge. You can scale loyalty. You can't scale turnover. Then you need to have an HR department that's constantly recruiting. We used to hire students. We try not to anymore. And the reason is that they're there for a short period and they're going to college and they're not going to stick with us. Right. So I'd rather hire for a community college or high school, somebody with more vocational that will stick with us.
So you want to train somebody and have them stick with you for life, forever.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be the perfect scenario. And they're really well paid and they're incredibly,
right.
Incredibly great.
And if you could lay that out and say, hey, look, this is not a dead end job. This is something that if you do these things, you make these steps, then you move to this level, you're going to make more money. You're going to have more responsibility. You can actually afford to raise a family. Like,
yeah. So you want to create a flat sales curve so that you don't have volatility. And if you can do that and you can get the employees paired with that, then not, people are working too many hours and then Johnny's not quitting. And then Jenny has to work more to cover for Johnny. And now she's pissed off because she had something that she wanted to see her niece's dance recital or whatever it is. Like it completes. So we, one of the things is we believe Monday to Friday, no weekends. Okay. So that's philosophy. We believe we start at 6:00 and we may have to work to 6 Monday to Friday. Okay. Generally speaking, the crews work from 7 till 5 and the drivers work from 6 till 6. And we have a repeating cycle like that. The young people that want the hours and the ones that actually do the extra 2 hours a day. And then we have a consistent workforce that's repeatable. The wives don't want divorce because, the husband's home for dinner on Friday night. There to see the kids, to go to soccer practice and ballet, or figure skating.
And probably what the wife wants is some consistency. Yeah. Not you're home at 2:00 today, you're home at 8:00 tomorrow. And also your check is half as much this week as it was last week. Like,
yeah. And then the other two also, like, where's dad? And, how do your kids end up? Right. So people talk about profit. Well, one of the profit dividends is your kids be great, turning out great. Yeah. So that requires you to be there, some presence. Right. And I know if I could do it again, I would do it differently for sure.
For your own kids,
well, my kids turned out well, I guess. I think my wife had a lot to do with it. So she took off 7 or 8 years from work to raise the kids during formative years, and so I wasn't really around for that. I was fortunate that she supported me. And so the entrepreneur, that's on you. The employee shouldn't have to live the entrepreneur's nightmare.
Yeah. And that's something that's hard for business owners to kind of see because like I see the hours that I'm putting in and then I kind of expect somebody to match that. But really I'm putting in that investment up front, going to get something on the tail end of that. They're just getting more out.
You chose as your partnership. You chose that. Right. And there's pros, cons, and unintended consequences. Yeah. They chose to work for a company. So there's a philosophy called Kaizen, and the Japanese pretty much say, look, if you get a happy wife, happy life, well, that's true. So if you make the husband present for the wife, you're going to have a much happier employee. So one of the things that we do to reward staff is every 10 years, if somebody makes it 10 years, they get a trip for their entire family to Osama.
Oh, that's cool.
And rather than giving them money, because, I could give them more money and they just vote or order more, they sock it or pay off a bill. I want them to have an experience. And so a lot of them wouldn't take care of themselves otherwise. So like we had a guy, our top guy, a Polish guy, he, Fanon Rada. Actually, worst interview of my life. And then he showed me pictures of what he did. I'm like, oh my God. How long is he figuring into that? Like, oh my God. And he told me, my boss didn't even leave me a yielder. So I'm like, okay, this guy's resourceful. The work's incredible. And he got it done in less time than anybody else.
Yeah.
And worst interview ever, grumpy. And I hired him. And the reason he was grumpy was he's expecting all employers to be like that. That was his guidance. Okay. Still with me now, 30 years later. And, we sent him and his family on a trip. And he's like, why would I go to Florida? Well, we sent him to Florida, his whole family, and he was blown away by the palm trees. Never seen palm trees, never seen, sun in the winter, getting a sunburn. And he was so excited that every single year he goes on a trip with his family. Wow. Right. So it's not just about the money, it's also the memories. And then his wife's super happy. And this is a great company. Right. And that's, you wonder why people leave. Maybe it's the spouse who's going like, this sucks. Maybe there's something else you could do. So those are investments that you make in also getting people to look forward to something. So there's so many things that you can do that are not really big money related and have a huge impact. I think people lose sight of it. They're chasing the dollar. And, I'm a big believer in just do an amazing job. And yeah, absolutely charge a lot for what you do. Do an amazing job. And you're going to get more customers, good ones. Because there's bad customers too.
Certainly. Yeah. And that could be its own day of discussion on dealing with clients.
So though imagine that your employee is rude to the neighbor, or imagine that your employee brought in the trash can for the neighbor. Like, what's the goodwill? It costs nothing. Yeah. And that's kind of what you want, right?
Well, and we think that the sales guy is the only salesman in the company, but everybody is. If they see you on the job, they see the guy working, they see the guy that's, driving the truck that, well, here did or did not cut them all. Here's a funny employee story. So I was playing tennis with one of my buddies at the club, is the Rice Dean of Royal Music School. And he said to me, Jared, I saw your guys working down the street for you, and it was horrible. It was absolutely brutal. I'm like, I was like in shock. He goes, I'm just kidding. They were fantastic. They worked neatly. They were organized. The work was amazing. And my heart almost stopped because I'm not seeing what's going on all these jobs that we have. And I realized he saw our company, recognized the brand of the truck, and he had a store about our compliment. Who's he going to tell? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So everybody is, the person that answers the phone, somebody's driving down the road, the guy that's on the crew, everybody is.
And the process is as important as the product. And so your employees are actually marketing for you the whole time. This was a pleasant experience. Yep. They were friendly. I've been to some stores where they're not friendly. I just don't go back.
Yeah, because you vote with your dollars. You don't have to leave a bad review. You don't have to tell your friends. You just talk about it.
That's right. And think of how many times that happens.
It's happened. I know for me quite a bit. And I guess I might give them a second chance depending on what it is. I may think, okay, well, it was just a grumpy, person. But if it happens multiple times, it's just like, okay, I'm done with this. Or there's a local fast food restaurant, and I really try not to eat fast food, but one restaurant was awful. And I went to another one with the same brand, and it was freaking awful. And then another one was awful. And I realized this isn't a local store problem. This is a management problem where from above, they have basically said, you're fine to do that. You can trash the bathroom. You don't have to work. You can talk whatever you want. You don't have to respect your customers. Like versus you go into like Chick-fil-A and you're going to get very good service and, very good, happy, smiling attitude. So,
well, it's interesting in HR. I think, people are the ingredient. I want happy people. Yeah. So I want a pleasant experience. I want to go to work and be happy when I see my employees. It's a long day when you don't like your employees. And there's a lot of employers that have to put up with that every day. And they're the ones who let it happen. And the reason is that either they're afraid to confront the problem or they think there is no other option. And I can tell you all the hard decisions I ever made were the best ones I ever made. I wish I would have been sooner.
So I think you just hit on something that's pretty big and you flew right through it. But most people probably do think that all employees are terrible. And so I have these guys and they do work. So I may as well just keep them and keep my mouth shut and let them do whatever they want and move on. But they're not. There are really good people out there.
There are heavy people.
But you have to ask yourself, why would they come work for me?
Oh, that's and yeah. So I'll tell you something, Larry. There's a quite a large company I went into, and I did consulting for them. I said the first thing you got to do is you got to get a nice office. Your office is a disaster. Imagine you're hiring somebody, and they're coming into this office. I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted.
Yeah.
And so 50 grand later, they have a nice office, and they've made some incredible hires. That would not be possible.
Yeah.
The environment not be proper. Okay. So every little thing, like we have wicked trucks. So whenever we have an employee that goes through our yard, they're blown away by our trucks and they're blown away by our organization. So anybody who's motivated by that excellence, who's going to want to work for us. And the last thing you want is somebody sloppy. I don't want sloppy people. We're not sloppy. And so, all the little things like giving your employees the right tools. So, there's a company I went into and I asked the employees, like, what would you like to have for your equipment? You'd like to have this. Okay, why? Okay. And I told the owner, just listen to them. They know what they're talking about. Get them what they want. Go buy that other brand, buy what they want. It might be 10,000 more. They're happy. Yeah. They had some input in the process and they get to use it every single day. And if they're right, you could actually be able to sell a premium. So listen to your employees. Sometimes we're so focused on the money, we forget about what the employees have to say. And they get a lot of great contributions to make if you just listen. Yeah. So, sometimes we're penny wise, pound foolish, and that. It's so great when you can actually build a great culture with your staff. It makes work fun. How many of you have fun at work? Not too many, right?
It's how if they do have fun, they're more likely to keep coming back until versus if it's stressful, whether they have stress with another, coworker or boss or whatever. Most people don't want stress. Not in their daily lives. They're going to either intentionally leave or they're going to find another reason to leave.
Yeah, 100%. And it's death by 1,000 cuts. And it finally the last one does you in. And so I feel for the employees. I really do. It's not easy out there. The work is very demanding in both the tree business and the landscaping business. And so imagine you're beating them to death in the hot sun,
and there's some brutal days.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And so, there has to be some empathy there and you got to build that into your cost structure.
Yeah.
So, the only time you get beaten by other companies is if it's like 5 brothers that are genetically mute and they have, backs like this, this tall and no back problems. And they were literally, the father beat work ethic into them. And the good news is that there's not that many of them. So you really need to worry about it because that's an anomaly. But I've seen that before. And then I've actually seen those brothers, literally, I won't name the company, the brothers fall apart over time because they literally work themselves to bed. So,
So really the goal of most organizations should be, if it's going to last any length of time, is to work yourself out of a job.
Yes.
And work somebody else into it. Not just you disappear, but somebody else gets moved into that so that it can keep going without you. And whether you are whatever, a ditch digger or a bricklayer or a manager or owner or whatever, you have to have somebody to be able to backfill your role so that you can move up to do something else.
Or you pay so much in the role that they stay in the role or happy.
Okay.
Right. So imagine
well, some people may enjoy
well, that's it. And yeah, so
they don't want to move up.
Yeah. So we have one of our foremen in one of our companies. We've got a lead hand who's unleague with capacity running for, and the foreman is on his last, say, 3 years before retirement. Well, his lead hand doesn't want to even on his own. And when he leaves, he'll step in that role and take it over. Right. Like how cool is that? Eh? Yeah. Where he's not rushing to get ahead. He's incredibly well paid and then his chance will come. Yeah. So it's interesting though, like, age. When you first start a company, and I look at companies, I look at the age of a company. If it's a younger company, it's a completely different atmosphere than an older company. And the older ones are a little more steady. They make fewer mistakes, generally less of an ego because they've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. And then, you've got these younger companies, then the cost structures are lower because they're starting earlier. And there's advantages, they work longer, and again, they make mistakes. So it all evens out in the end. So eventually what you want to do is you have a blend of young and old, experience, and and different experiences. And that makes for a much fuller company.
So when you're looking for hires, are you looking for a skill set that somebody may have, or is it more like what's more important, a particular skill set or the culture?
The attitude.
Attitude. Okay.
Attitude and intelligence, care, curiosity, capacity.
Okay.
So care, curiosity, capacity, well, those three things. So I had a cousin of mine that worked for a company who was 15 years old, and he could run jobs at 15, right?
Yep.
How uncommon is that? He's a superstar.
Yeah.
And, like he used the hockey analogy where Wayne Gretzky was scoring 200 goals in Pee Wee. Well, there's something there.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he made a lot of money, so he made it to NHL. So, sorry, I used the hockey.
Yeah. So, but those guys that are the best, whatever, bricklayer or tree climber or whatever it is, from my experience, a lot of them are not that great of human beings. And so I'm not going to make the sacrifice, and I have before, but I'm not willing now to make the sacrifice to say, okay, I'm just going to turn a blind eye and let him do whatever he wants because he can do so much in production. I'm much better off hiring somebody that has zero skill, but is trainable and is a good, solid human being. And
well, because you have to live the consequence of that.
Yeah. And they may never get to that level as that, super.
So here's the cool
skilled work.
The beautiful thing about HR is that a lot of these misfit employees, I'll call them that, end up starting their own business and they become subcontractors.
Interesting.
Okay. And so a lot of subtrades are unemployable and incredibly talented.
Yeah.
And on their own, they can somehow get by and do what they do, and they do fantastic work. And they don't fit a company culture, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of these employees some of them should go on their own because they're not going to get along with others. However, in their own little world, they can do their thing and be happy and show up late and hit out the trees.
They have their own schedule.
They can all schedule. Right. So that's the other thing that we've learned is that there's 16 different personality profiles in the Myers-Briggs, and everyone's different. And so, you're not going to get a cheetah to go slow.
So I know a little bit about Myers-Briggs, and part of it is that you're kind of born with your
traits. They can vary a bit.
Yeah, and then as you get older, maybe you get a better mix of things.
Where you solve your scale rust off.
Yeah. But ultimately, you're not going to take somebody that's in one category and pull them over. Like that's not the goal of HR.
Imagine I'm a pig. Okay, I was born a pig, and you want me to be neat and clean. Which is
not going to happen.
Sometimes it's not going to happen, right? So, one of the first questions we ask on our interview questionnaire is, like, how do you feel about neatness? So, in our company, we want type A people. Otherwise, we have a mess.
But you also know what type A people are looking for. If you know that they are neat people and you give them a mess, then they're going to feel very uncomfortable, 100% stressed. And
well, here's another example, right? So when would you want somebody who's not that neat?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll give you a great example. Yeah. Let's say I'm dealing with young children. Yeah. And they're making a mess all over there, and then
maybe creativity.
So you're working with toddlers or whatever. Like the last thing you would want is somebody like me as their teacher.
Yeah.
I'm much better at the other stages. So this person's gonna be more patient. Okay. They're gonna be a little, let the kids learn themselves, whatever, instead of, the old boss kicking out of me, even though I try to subdue that trait. They're going to be better suited to that type of role, not the hard landscaping, organized, regimented role. So
it doesn't mean they're an awful person. They're just not going to be a good fit for that job.
Yeah, there probably are. It could be. I'm just thinking. There's probably a ton of jobs. It'd be interesting to ask Chat GPT. It'd say, I'm kind of a sloppy person. What kind of job would fit that mold?
Interesting. I'm sure
it has a big list.
Yeah. So my daughter is a mess, but she's very creative.
Yeah.
And so in her mess, she creates some really cool, really artistic, really, really neat things. But there are certain jobs that she's never going to be able to do. That's just not, she's not wired to do that.
Not at all. So it's really interesting. And, it's interesting that philosophy of do what you love. There's so many different things to do. You I think you can go on Indeed and you can do a psychological profile and find out who you are, watch a little video, and then sort of look at what jobs might suit what you can do. And that might be a better place to start than just experimenting. And so find out about yourself a little bit more and do some exploring virtually rather than getting a job, quitting, and think really about like, what do I like to do? And what do I hate to even more?
So are there personality profiles that make really crummy business owners?
Oh yeah.
And there's probably several of those that own businesses.
Oh yeah.
So maybe it would be really good to kind of figure that out before just,
Yeah.
continuing to go down that path.
Yeah. But, and again, you can offset your weaknesses with a team. That's the beauty. As long as you have humility, you know, Chris, if for you, let's say you're better at me at something, here's the key.
Yeah.
Here's the keys.
Yeah.
I don't have an ego that way.
Yeah.
Like if you should be CEO and I should be COO or I should be operations manager, I'm okay with that. I just need the job done and I did it in the best possible way. So part of it's our own ego, our insecurities, and everybody has them or had them.
Yeah.
And wisdom is something sometimes hard to attain. My favorite stories with HR is when I take a young person and I turn them into a mature, wise person at an early age. Okay. So it saves them all kinds of grief and suffering. And, I had a couple of three brothers that I was coaching. And I asked one of them, I said, have you ever thought about creating a CSI? Right. Part of what HR is deep. And there was silence. And then the two brothers that were there, as the third brother, started bawling along. And what it was is they had different expectations of each other. And they were both beautiful people. And I made them realize that, what you do is perfect. And what your brother does is perfect. And you have to accept the way he is. You can't mold him in your image. He is not wired like you. And if you can accept that, you're going to get along fine. It won't be exactly the way you want it. He's your brother. It'll be great. It won't be perfect. Let it go. That's your only other choice, or break up the business, or unfortunately check out because you're so frustrated. So imagine that. That's HR. And, you're that unhappy and you want, and you're a perfectionist. Like I know I'm super type A. It's like, I have to let it go, especially at home. My wife doesn't load the dishes the way I want. It drives me crazy. I like to organize all the cutlery the same way. I just grab it, put it in the drawer. Hers are all over the place.
Yeah.
She puts the dishes and they flip upside down. They flip with water to this day.
But there are worse problems to be.
There are 100%. 100%.
So you choose your battles.
Choose your battle. And that's my home front. That's different.
Yeah.
At work, I can actually do some research on choosing who's going to work for my team.
Yeah.
So I don't have that issue. Okay. Right. And we have the technology now to do it. You can do a psych profile. You can go on ChatGPT. You can interview somebody. You can ask them some questions and go, I don't think this person is the right personality fit for this role.
So I know where I was going earlier. So if you said happy wife, happy life, right? So if you've got a guy that has a really good, stable home life, his wife is happy with him. She's not blowing his phone up. She doesn't think he's cheating. They're not behind on their bills. He's going to be a better team member because his head is at work.
You're
versus, if there's drama going on,
you're higher stakes. You're in the family.
But I mean, how often, I know I've seen it where, the wife is blowing the phone up and the rent's late and the power's about to be cut off and the car just got repoed. And it's like, his head is not at work. He is on the payroll. He's being paid, but he's not actually being productive. And he's probably a liability because all the things going around it, his head is somewhere else. So, that's part of it is making sure that, you've got, I call them mature, responsible adults, but I mean, you've got people that have their act together at home and things are going to go smooth at work.
So, another concept in HR is whether, we have a family business. I don't like the word family. I like the word community. Okay. So if you're my brother and you suck, you're gone. Okay. It doesn't matter that if you're my neighbor and you're awesome, you stay. And my neighbor beats my brother. The problem is most people end up putting their siblings first. And I'll give you a great historical anecdote. So Marcus Aurelius, arguably one of the best leaders in the world, in the Roman Empire, did an incredible job in the military and just generally in the Roman Empire. And they had a leadership program to build leaders and then have a succession plan when the leader left. And Marcus Aurelius was the best leader, and then he chose his son to be the next leader, which was a mistake because he didn't follow the program. In all his brilliance, he made that basic fundamental mistake, and that was the decline of the Roman Empire. Wow. So I realize how important leadership is, and I would never put a family member above what's right, ever. I would never have nepotism. And if I had the power, there's no way, because all I care about is your behavior, your intention, your disposition, and your behavior. And I don't care if you're blood or not. Could care less. So for me, community beats family.
Okay.
And if you don't hold the standard, that's forever.
Yeah.
I have no.
But it's good to lay that out too. Absolutely. Like, hey, I'm hiring you and you're my whatever, brother, cousin, father, my sister.
So the other part is, well, some people say never hire family. Wrong answer.
Yeah.
Talent is so scarce. What you do is you lay out the expectation of them up front. You say, you may not be here, just so you know.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to take a chance on you just like I would on anybody else. I'm not making this rule about no family. And if you suck, you're gone. What if you were an amazing,
necessarily missed out.
And I missed out on this talent. As talent is so scarce.
Right.
Like, think of all the sports in the NFL. How many great quarterbacks there are? And there's only a few are the best quarterbacks. So between all the world's greatest quarterbacks, there's 5 that are insane. And there's maybe one who's insane.
Yeah.
Despite all their flaws.
Yeah.
Right? Well, it's the same thing with your talent. So you're going to, or here's another way too. We don't hire women. Are you out of your mind? Do you know how many amazing women tree climbers are? Have you seen those women gymnasts flipping around? You don't want that woman being the monkey up in the tree? Hell yeah, you do. So you've got super passion that's wrong.
Yeah, you're right. And I've got, to me, it doesn't matter, if you're male, female, doesn't matter if you're black or white, doesn't matter. I just want, solid people. That's it. And so you can wind up I've got females in traditionally male positions. I've got males in traditionally female positions, like some of our office staff, that you would normally expect that to be but it's wherever somebody really fits.
Again, so it's not the psych profile.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it. That's the thing. And there's a spectrum. So, most women all women have the same IQ as men. They may tend to go to people type work, so they might become more doctors, that there's more female doctors, okay? And the men like widgets and toys, so they end up going into engineering. But there are some women who love that.
Yeah.
And there are more engineers than female engineers, and there are more female doctors than male doctors. And they have the same IQ. And it's their personalities that are driving the choices in what they do. And so it's really interesting to look at people as personalities. And that's the only metric that you use, and intelligence, of course, and work ethic, as to how they fit in the organization.
It's good stuff, man. Good stuff. Okay, so here's kind of a burning question. So you've got somebody that's not performing, and you let them go. And if that's a new hire, that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
Somebody that's been with you for a while, that's a hard decision because they've been with you. They've showed loyalty to you. You've got time and money invested in their training and everything else, because it says they have to fix it.
Okay. And whether it's your mistake or the employee's mistake, you can't live with the mistake for the next 10 years. That's a death.
So kind of what's forgivable,
not even be a function of forgiveness. It may be a function more of you're just not the right fit for the company.
Okay.
And
or where you are, maybe we put you in a role that you're not very good at. Maybe you need to do a different role.
Well, so the dilemma is that role paid less if you move them? So that's a bit of a kick up to you. So we never do that. You don't want to move somebody to a role that's different, that's paid the same, which creates unfairness with the other employees. Yeah. So oftentimes the easiest solution, and I don't know how many people that don't get another job. Almost everybody finds another job. You ever thought of so is there other ones that fired, never got another job? A lot of employed people.
Yeah. So you shouldn't have that much guilt over letting somebody go. They are going to go work somewhere else, especially if they're worth it.
Yeah.
But I guess the balance is trying to figure out you're telling somebody, hey, we want you to stick around,
Watch this super simple.
right? Okay.
I go to work, Chris, and I'm happy to see. Okay. You're a keeper. I go to work and I'm unhappy to see. You're not a keeper. It's really that simple. Okay. You give me energy or you don't. And if you don't give me energy, that's a drain on me. It's a drain on everybody else. That's no good. You could be a personality. It could be they're great people. Our personalities are just complete polar opposites. You drive crazy. Like, Chris, you just drive me crazy. Life's too short for me to have to live that every day. Okay. Right.
But I like what you said about they're going to get another job.
They are. And you can help them get a job. Sometimes we do that as well.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that. I like that. I just think it's, people kind of feel like, man, I've been committed to you, but you're right on the cusp of getting fired, like at any moment.
Well, remember that line I told you earlier that one of my friends, it was a high level HR guy, or 5,000 employees. His sum of all his kernels of wisdom was, you have no idea how close you are to getting fired. And it could be far, it could be close.
Yeah.
And so think about that of any one of your employees. Where's the meter? 0 to 99.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somewhere in between. And by the way, it flips the other way too. You have no idea how close I'm quitting. Okay. So ideally it's 0 quit, 0 fire.
Yeah.
Isn't that an interesting perspective? And that's why the first question we ask on our employee assessments is, how happy are you to work here?
And how often are you doing these assessments? Twice a week. Okay. How scheduled? Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. How happy are you to work here?
The assessment, is that available for people to get, or is that
it's part of our consulting.
Okay, so it's got ours. It's okay, 1,000 hours to build. So
okay,
so you don't want to just
I don't play. I want to help the world. That's it's like this is a capitalistic.
all right. Well, what's number 2, 3, and 4?
Well, what you got to do, actually, we got to do it, is you got to create a giant spreadsheet in Excel, and then put in every single question in a vertical axis. Let's say I had to do it. Okay, then have a coding system that is got a conditional formatting. So that when you choose it, it turns a color based on the answer. And so as you do it, you go through it and you have different colors. So let's say blue is great, green is good, orange is trouble, red is bad. And it might have missing skill set, which is yellow or something like that. And essentially you go through the estimate. And if you have the perfect employee would be all blue across the spectrum. An employee with blips would have little oranges and reds. Now reds mean we should get fired. If it's red, it's that bad. Okay. Orange is trouble, right? Green is good, could be better, and blue is just exceptional. So it'd be hilarious, but one of the things I created this document a few years ago, watching my wife struggle with assessments, and the reason was the processes were horrible. I want to see in one shot a history of what happened. I can see the graph format, and I can see behavior, assessment to assessment, year over year, right, through colors, and there's an anomaly and something's bad, it'll pop it. That means we're going to discuss that anomaly. If you've got a all blue assessment, here's a raise, there's nothing to talk about. If you've got issues, why, what's going on, how do we fix it? And then you have the point of discussion, and they can't hide for it. But normal assessments, I don't even know what the last minute assessment said. I can't correlate to the assessment from the assessment before. This way, there's a history of what's this employee's performance and behavior.
I like it. And because it's yours in Excel, so it can be graphed and you can see
yeah, it's the behavior. Yeah, okay. And that ties into that, I want an 8 out of 8 to 10 for you. I don't want 7s, I certainly don't want 6s. And I don't want anybody dipping out of my 8 to 10 zone. So these are all so think of them as philosophies or principles that we live by. And if we live by our principles, then we're going to execute on them. And if we execute them, we're going to get the results that we want. And if we go fishing enough times for the right talent, we're going to get the right fish. With the right lure, make the right money. Here's a great one. Watch this. You want to hire a salesperson, HR, right? Where would you find a salesperson?
Maybe another company?
No.
Within?
No.
Okay.
Restaurant. Go to a restaurant and then look for the best waitress or waiter. See how they behave with the customers. Then ask them what their education was. And usually they're all very educated. And then say, how much do you get paid? And I'll pay you way more. You never have to work a night again. There you go. There's your salesperson.
You just got to train them to your system.
Based on what their education is, I can very quickly make a transition. I already have the attitude of this position, willing to work hard, willing to work a night. It can only get better. And you can find talent like that. So I would be owner restaurants. And I would be picking those people and let's have fun with those people.
Well, isn't that hilarious? So they don't have any industry knowledge.
Who cares? I'll choose.
Yeah.
Or they might have some vocational education based writer. Right. So, I was at the restaurant today and I was watching some fantastic, they made me feel good, And so if they're working there at night and it's just it's a temporary gig, fish in the pools where no one else is fishing, look where no one else is.
Yeah, they're out there, and I haven't specifically looked in restaurants. So we have hired people that were in restaurants, but I wasn't like looking. But
Yeah.
But I think the big thing is right. You see their work ethic. You see their how they interact with people. You see
What if they take your orders, 5 orders, and they don't write it down? They get it right. Now you got high IQ, social skills.
But to me, I'm not impressed by a waiter that can remember my order.
No,
So here's why. Because it's too easy to just write it down. And how many times do they get it wrong when they don't write?
well, the good news is they're testing their memory as well.
Okay.
So I'm okay with both. All I'm saying is when I do see that, then memory, right? There's different types of memory as well. So in HR, there's different types of memory. I have wicked recall on it. So I can pull like this. I can't remember your name. I can remember your name, Chris, because I went and looked at your tab before we set them, double checked all the names. So I repeated in my head so many times. However, I'm brutal with names.
Yeah.
Just brutal. And I don't make excuses for it. I can tell you what happens and what my workaround is. Or I've got to the point where I have no shame in saying, you know what? I'm going to forget your name. I'm going to tell you in advance. 3 days later, I'm going to forget your name. I'm going to say, what's your name? You're going to tell me, and I'm eventually going to get it.
It's not that I don't like you. It's not that I just add with names, terrible names, and I'm no longer ashamed of it
because it happens too often. And I hope you forget.
I wind up calling people the wrong name, and that's really bad. So I wind up doing the hey buddy, hey.
Well, I do. So your wife instead of calling her by her name, right? So I do workarounds, and so it's liberating to just be honest with myself. Say, look at that, I forgot your name. Yeah, I gotta ask.
But at a certain level, like you should know people's names. You should know.
There's a lot of things we should do. And it really comes down to what am I going to do to try and make it better? So I started the whole conversation with the people today with implicit trust. I have to trust myself and I have to trust you to trust me, to be honest with you. So if I said to you, Chris, I'm terrible with names. Next time I see you, I may forget your name. Would you forgive me? Would you respect me for being honest about that? Yeah. So when I say, Chris, what's your name? Instead of calling you Bob, might be better.
Yeah. No, I get it. Okay, so what else do we have for HR? And
so the steps of HR are essentially recruitment. So how do I find the talent? Okay. Then there's the pre-interview process, the interview process. Then there's the actual hiring process, the onboarding process, right? And then hopefully there's no issues. Okay. If there's issues, there's the exiting process.
So a lot of people think about HR as like where you have to go when there's a problem. And really that's like the last part.
That's the last part. If you have a great company, there's no problems. It's only opportunities. How do I get help?
So let's say, I don't know, whatever. One guy's beefing with another. Is that an HR issue or is that a manager problem?
So it's probably a manager problem. And I'd sit both of them down together and say, what's going on? And can you get along? Is this about being right? Or is this about the right answer? Because sometimes you need to inform their ignorance that their perspective might be wrong.
Yeah.
And that treating somebody poorly is not acceptable. So swearing at someone, calling them an idiot or some racial epithet, or anything like that's not acceptable. Like I don't want you to feel good when you go to work.
Yeah, right. We don't want to eat.
It's just too short. Yeah.
So you said at about 40 people, you need a dedicated HR person. But before that, like, who's handling that?
Operation manager, HR, and that combo works.
Okay.
You can also have we have a director of HR and operations with an HR support staff. Okay. You can also, smaller companies outsource their HR. So there's some great companies that you can outsource your HR. And, it might cost you $10,000 or something, except you have somebody you can interview and screen and, set the applications out, all that stuff that just is grindy that someone else can take care of, right? So you can outsource some things that, there are some great people that you can outsource stuff to. It doesn't have to be in-house.
But and we've got all different levels of viewers, listeners. But if you're a owner, climber, estimator, all in one, wearing a lot of hats, and you got a couple of guys that work for you, it's really hard to kind of research the employment laws and get the right paperwork and figure all that out. So maybe at that point, you're better off just like giving that to.
Well, so what it is most people are afraid of spending money. Okay. At the end of the day, the constraint's the money, right? So there's time constraint, there's money constraint, and there's grief constraint, the three currencies of business. And so you don't have enough time, and you also have a cheap mindset. And so again, I go back to like, let's say 3 guys climbing that work, 6,000 hours a year. I was giving the example earlier. That HR person at $10,000 is very small, 60 cents an hour. Yeah, it's not going to lose you the job. So raise your price by 60 cents an hour. Yeah, and you've 30 times 6. No, it's actually only 30. 30 times 6, 1. So maybe it's $1.30 an hour. Okay, and so now you paid for that. And by the way, it was a real cost you had to pay for anyway. Right. And so you're subsidizing more hours you were going to do on Saturday or Sunday or whatever. So if I want to grow for business, I'm going to incur that cost at some point. Yeah. So, I don't think it's going to put you out of business. It's certainly going to bring you a lot of relief.
So how about like a payroll service that can do a lot of that? Like they can take on the hiring, they can get their paperwork straightened out. They can basically, I just got to give them the hours. Hey, this guy worked whatever, 43 hours.
HR outsourcing. So there's a woman, we met Amy, and she's got a company called Bookkeepers for Landscapers. Okay. She's phenomenal. Yeah. You can outsource your bookkeeping. You don't need to worry about it. It's going to be done properly. She cares intensely. Yeah. And I just shed a hat. Yeah. I hired that HR company for 10 grand. I shed a hat. At some point, you're going to have to do it. At some point, you're going to have to make a bold move. What is it?
But it's not just the HR hat. It's another one and another one. And by the time it's all said, it's a cost.
And there's cost.
But that's going to keep you from growing. It's going to,
if you don't do it, you won't grow.
Right. It's going to keep you from being able to get to the next
kids. So, at some point, you might as well go out of business or work for somebody like you, because running a business and not making money is the definition of insanity. So I did mention earlier that when I started to make money, I decided to bankboard myself. I said, I'm going to go out of business and I'm going to raise my price and no one matters me. And I didn't go out of business. And so it was a mindset shift. And so people change for 4 reasons: because they're in trouble, because they're curious, because they're inspired, or because they have a wealthy mindset. It's the 4 reasons that people change. And so it may be that pain motivates you either way. Someone's going to give. At some point, everybody has to take the leap of faith to make that bold move. Yeah. And either it's going to go to hell or it's going to turn out well.
But there's a lot of things that, I can make excuses and say, well, I'm not going to outsource whatever it is, my pruning, because I'm the only one that can do that. I don't want to trust somebody else to do that.
That's fine. If you're not doing it, nobody or somebody else is doing this.
But the HR stuff, very few people getting into business really know anything about HR or hiring or paperwork or the things that would be an easy one to shift.
So yes, it would be. And there's lots of HR companies out there. Because money. So a lot of us are reluctant to separate from the money because, at the end of the day, you have to charge a certain amount to pay for all the things that need to be done, the administration of business. And if you don't charge enough to do it, you can't afford it. Now, when you're a startup, I get it. It's really hard. I don't have enough work and I'm not charging. But at some point, you have enough work and you have to raise your price where you can afford these things. Otherwise, why have a business? Yeah. Like, here's a good one. You start a business and you work for 10 years. You make it next to nothing. You could have worked for let's pick it up, or 100 grand a year, or $1 million. And now you may save $500,000 instead of $1 million in 10 years. And you're in debt.
Right.
And all the headaches and extra hours. And what's going to change?
Working 90 to 100 hours a week.
What's going to change? What's going to change? So I got to give something to get something. And most people are too cheap mindset to give something to get something. And that, for me, okay, I'll admit it. It was like I'm fed up, and I can't do this anymore. I just don't want to kill myself for less than minimum wage. Right. And that's what the change out.
But I guess where I was going with that is it's very easy. Like there are a lot of things that you can shed, but there are some that we can easily make excuses for and say, hey, nobody else knows how to sell and I don't have time to train them or whatever. But and going into business, I don't know squat about payroll. I don't know squat about taxes. I don't know squat about payroll taxes. I don't know squat about nothing. Yeah, I'm happy to shed that off on somebody else. But what happens, unfortunately, is a lot of people will try to. I'm not sure what they call it in Canada, but they call it 1099. Here basically a contractor.
Yes.
And so they try to skirt the employment laws.
Yeah.
And they go, well, he's not technically an employee. Well, he's a subcontractor.
So you get caught.
But realistically, he's an employee.
That's right.
But you just don't want to deal with the paperwork and the headache, so payroll taxes.
In Canada, our workers' comp is so well organized that they will audit you, and then they'll ask you to list your biggest competition, which is generally who you can't stand. Interesting. So essentially, there's a trail of they're going after all the people that are cheating, and that ends all of it. And so I have to give kudos. The CEO of our workers' comp our rates have gone down.
Okay.
He's gotten a huge rage, deservedly so. I can't just say that for any government employee, but in this case, I can say everything you've done is better.
Yeah.
You deserve every credit you get.
So all your workers' comp is government?
Yeah,
it's candidates?
Yeah. So how, as long as you're safe. If you're not safe, it goes through the roof.
Yeah.
If you're safe, so the vision of this guy was fantastic, and he executed in a sort of quasi-governmental organization.
Yeah.
In Canada, it's not worth it. Man, you would never subcontract like that, skirt the law because you didn't get caught.
Well, I see it a lot, not just in, landscape or tree service industry. It's all over the place. And the main reason is because they feel like they're saving the headache and they're saving money. It's easy to just pay you and say, okay, you worked this week. Here's your, whatever it is, $1,000.
Yeah, if you're
done. You got the 1,000.
Yeah.
I'm done. All I did was write a check. I'm done. And at the end of the year, I'm going to send you a tax form. Still says I paid you. Yeah. So workers' comp's a whole different episode. But as far as the taking care of like actually being an employee, like the IRS is for us, the IRS is pretty like black and white on that. Like you're either an employee or a contractor. You're not, there's no gray area. And people try to make it gray. It's not.
No. You estimate on the job. There has to be risk for you. You can't work for only one contractor. There's a whole bunch of, at least in Canada, and if you don't meet those criteria, you're an employee. And if that's true, and there's liability associated with you not paying the workers' comp and whatever else, like you can't build a proper business. You're essentially you're a guest.
So what happens here is, let's say that you're, and I could get the exact numbers, but let's say on your $1,000 check that I paid you, that I'm supposed to take out whatever it is, $50 in your taxes and match the 50. It's not the exact number,
right.
but ultimately I'm going to take some money out. I'm going to send that to the government. Well, if I'm caught 1099 you when you're technically an employee, then what happens is I'm on the hook for my portion and your portion,
and fines
and penalties and interest, and so it's a big deal. So you're not really saving money, and I think you're right. I think they are going to get caught at some point, and typically what happens is somebody goes to their local accounting office to file their tax return, and they say, well, here's the deal. Okay, got this. Well, tell me about this. Do you work for them? Or, yeah, it's my, I've been working there for 5 years. Well, you have a 1099? That's not right. And bam, all of a sudden it's over. And then they start looking at everybody, and
so again, doing it, everything,
just do it professionally, write your plans, do it the right way to begin with. And it's not going to cost you more money. It's actually going to save.
Yes.
So, and you wind up with better people. So that's the other thing is I see if somebody is, and I keep going back to it, but if somebody's 1099, if they're not on payroll, they're not treated right, then it makes it tough for them to get financing for a vehicle, for a house, for like just short term. It's so short term. And I guess the other way would be cash, which is, it again, not a good idea.
Well, the thing about cash is just that the cash is going to disappear.
Yeah, but if I'm paying you cash, and then you go to the bank then they're going to say you made $0. Well, we're not going to loan you money to buy a house. Well, no. I really did make money. Well,
Or even if you're selling your business and you're doing cash, sure, and the value goes down because the sales aren't there, the profits aren't there. What happened to the profit?
well, and as a business owner, if I'm taking money out of the business to then pay you cash, then basically I'm being taxed on that like it's profit for the business. So it's a crappy deal all the way around. I'm screwing myself. I'm screwing the IRS. I'm screwing you. It's not a good deal. And to take it farther, if you were to then try to use your, illegitimate tax return to send to the bank to get a loan, well, now it's fraudulent. So now I'm committing bank fraud, submitting this false return that doesn't have things. It's you're digging a really big hole. You're much better off just starting up front, doing things right, versus in the get-go.
The other thing too about cash is that you pay your employee cash, and then they're disruptive with you, and they report you to the IRS. Sure. So like, why are you doing cash? It's so silly. Yeah, it really is.
Well, and so your insurance, or at least my general liability and workers' comp, is based off of my payroll. I think that's pretty common. And if I'm skirting that by paying somebody cash, then I'm also skipping out on paying my GL and my workers' comp. So now it's insurance fraud.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just blows up into this huge thing. It's not a good idea.
Not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's not a good idea. We're not saving anything. We're creating more and more headaches. So yeah, we're much better off just. I like that, like what you said, there was a guy that started paying you to consult with him before he was ever even in business.
Yes.
So he's got a good plan. That guy's probably going to make it. He's going to do really well.
It will for sure.
Yeah.
I got a few companies like that are early startups, and they just don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
So if you look back and you mapped out every mistake, you put a dollar value to it, it's insane, actually.
Yep.
And I look at the mistakes I made. Yeah. And it's insane. And they're all preventable. Like most people, they don't go to business school and then they start a business. And even the business school, I have guys that have gone to business school, and the business schools aren't that great.
I've got a business degree and I learned some great stuff, but I didn't learn how to run a business.
And some of the business degrees are not geared towards small business.
Yeah.
A small business with multi hats is different than a large corporation. Sure. They can put you in there somewhere and you're in with these 1,000 employees and you'll osmosis through it.
Yeah.
In a small business, you go in there, at any point in time, something's going to take you out. That's an existential threat. Yeah. Yeah. So on the delegation front, most people are terrible delegators.
Yeah.
And there's different types of delegation. There's different people that can be delegated to, some that can't be. But
with growth, we've got to have some delegation. I can't do everything.
Oh, that's 100%. Yeah. Question is, who am I delegating to? Yeah. How am I delegating to?
Yeah.
And the best way to delegate them, honestly, is through a meeting structure where you meet, and in the meeting you delegate what you want done, and then people go off and they do it. They come back to the meeting, they report what happened, you have a new task, and you just keep going back and forth, as opposed to random delegations all of them plus. Controlled environment, everybody learns from each other. It is really effective. It's like a football team where you have a huddle. You get in there, you're doing this, you're letting this play, boom, boom, go. Okay, didn't work, let's get back together, review what happened, boom, 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 do it again. The best analogy I can give you for delegation of learning is, for those of you barbers that played tennis, Roger Federer got injured and he took a year off pretty much. And then he went and worked on his weak position. He's practicing parts. He goes back and he starts winning it. He meets Rafael on a couple of times. Unbelievable. Why? Because you get better practicing, not playing the game. And so the meetings are the practice. And the work is the game.
Okay.
And we keep score of the game. When we get better in practice, we see what went wrong in the game. We go back to the practice and we learn what we did wrong. We practice our weaknesses and we also work on our strengths and we get better. And that's what delegation means. Delegation, the best delegation was of a meeting structure. And the football players and the football teams figured it out. It's the most beautiful method of work.
I'm just thinking there's some pretty terrible sports teams that have been playing for a long time. They're still terrible.
And it's a couple of things. So they might have the wrong coach.
Yeah.
They might have the wrong players.
But you're not getting better in the game. You're getting better in the practice.
And they might have poor systems.
Yeah.
or they might be matching up their system against another system that doesn't align well. So like
I tried to steal somebody else's system, and
I love M&A. M&A is a wonderful metaphor for business. And so there's different styles. And so if you have a, let's say fast reflexes, what I would do is I fake you out and then you reflex and then you have a slow reset and then I hit you. Okay. You'll kill me if I play on your reflexes. So what's my strategy to neutralize your tactics? Or depending on your body shape, I'll fight you a certain way. So if you have skinny legs, I'm going to kick the hell out of your legs.
So you have to kind of adapt 100% to your.
And so business, understanding your opponent, which is the competition, and how can I beat them? And so imagine that is your sole focus. How do I win this game of football? And how do I become not the bottom guy in the NFL, but the top guy? What do I do? Well, I'm going to need a great quarterback. I'm going to need some great receivers. I'm going to get some, I got to build a freaking team. I got to run plays, and I got to make sure I run the right strategy. Because when I come across a similar team, what am I going to employ? Am I going for the long bomb? Am I going for short passes? Am I going for handoffs? What's my strategy? So football is it requires super high intelligence to understand the different players, the HR pieces.
Yeah.
O.J. Simpson, okay? He couldn't catch a ball for life. So they handed it to him. He won that way, right? Didn't have great hand strength, but he had great movement and he was incredibly fast, explosive speed. And so he was successful as a running back, not as a receiver, despite the fact that he could run like hell. And so think about your employees and what they should be doing. Now, the dilemma is in a small business is there's not enough room for this. In a bigger organization, there's a lot more room to get the nuances right. That's why small business is so much room. My best analogy, and we'll leave it with this, is you have some turtles and they hatch and they all run out, and some get flipped over by a wave and they die on their back. Some get picked up by pelicans. Some make it in the water and they get caught up in the weeds. Some make it a little further and then they get eaten by barracudas. Some make it to adulthood and then a boat hits them, right? And only a few survive. And that's small business.
Yeah.
Because there's no experience, there's no backups, there's nothing. So you have to be lucky and a superstar. And then maybe surround yourself with some smart turtles.
That's it. Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.